Shrek 5 is coming right around the corner, which sounds crazy to me because my mind completely blanked out that there was even a Shrek 4. It's sort of like Apple releasing the iPhone 10, like, wait, what happened to 9? But seeing the new design and the various reactions to it got me a little nostalgic and curious of what all went into making this character we love so much. And I was not surprised to find that, like Shrek, his development had many layers as well.
Layers! Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
Oh, you both have layers. Oh. You know, not everybody like onions.
DreamWorks was created in 1994 and founded by renowned director Steven Spielberg, music executive David Geffen, and producer and executive Jeffrey Katzenberg. Now, I want to talk about Jeffrey Katzenberg for a moment because before even starting DreamWorks, he had a huge influence on the animation industry through his work at Disney. Starting first as an assistant at Paramount Pictures, he eventually moved to Disney and was responsible for turning around Disney's feature animation unit, because it was not doing well. During his tenure, we got films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, and The Lion King. He was even behind brokering the deal with Pixar to produce the first 3D animated movie, Toy Story. However, when leaving Disney, DreamWorks was poised from the start as something that was an alternative to Disney. But Katzenberg stated it wasn't until DreamWorks made Shrek that they truly found who they were as a studio. And contrary to Disney, which was primarily aimed at children, most often little girls, DreamWorks' mission was to appeal to both children and adults because they believed there was still a child in every adult that dared to dream. Now, Shrek didn't begin at DreamWorks. In fact, in 1990, a children's book titled Shrek with an exclamation mark was published by author and cartoonist William Steig. It was a story about a grotesque ogre who ended up marrying an even uglier princess. What I found interesting is that William Steig drew thousands of cartoons, which earned him the name King of Cartoons, but it wasn't until his 80s that he created Shrek, and it's said that many of his stories revolve around themes of separation and reunion. Now, the version of Shrek that made it to the theaters is not exactly the version in the original book. In the original story, Shrek was a green fire-breathing monster who loved to cause havoc and was kicked out of the swamp by his parents to spread havoc around the world. He soon comes in contact with a witch who agrees to read his fortune in exchange for his rare lice, because, you know, for potions and other witchy stuff. By uttering the magical words apple strudel, she said that he will be taken by a donkey to a castle, battle a knight, and marry a princess who is uglier than even him. Through a series of trials that is somewhat similar to the first act of the movie, he finds his princess and they live horribly ever after. Even though the book ended up being wildly successful, there were still parents who felt like it wasn't quite suitable for children, which made it a perfect adaptation for DreamWorks. Shrek had original plans to be a live-action hybrid, utilizing the latest technology at the time in motion capture. I believe this may have been due to the influence of Steven Spielberg, who was a fan of the developing technology. Nicolas Cage was in talks to take on the main role, but ultimately turned it down due to the fear of its perception it would have on his young audience. I wonder though, in the era of live-action remakes, will we soon see another attempt at a live-action Shrek? I hope not. There was also consideration of a hand-drawn version that would star Bill Murray as Shrek and Steve Martin as Donkey. This did not work out though, and they eventually moved on to the 3D animation and another comedian, Chris Farley. Now, Chris Farley was chosen to be the repulsive but comical Green Ogre. Farley was a well-known comedian at the time, becoming popular on SNL for his bold and loud personas. I bring this up because animators draw a lot of inspiration from Farley when they think of Shrek's movements and design, as often happens when designing 3D animated characters. Many times, animators will view recordings of the actor in other films or even in the recording booth and apply them to the 3D model. It helps bring further life to the character they are voicing. And when you look at the designs of Shrek, there is a lot of similarities that you can draw when comparing it to photos of Chris Farley. Although Chris Farley, after completing 80% of the script, soon died, he was replaced by Mike Myers, another well-known comedian, and he recorded the entire movie not only adding his style to the character, but also adding a Scottish accent. Now, it's also said that he requested the script to be rewritten, and I don't doubt that some scenes were, but we've seen that some of the same jokes that Chris Farley recorded were also included in the final film. But there is no doubt that Myers brought another layer to Shrek's character that wasn't previously there. In the end, you get a combination of Chris Farley and Mike Myers, with Shrek being a blubbery, loud, large character who draws attention, combined with a rough and cranky outer shell. Another element that contributed to Shrek's design was the failures in earlier testing of the character. Originally, DreamWorks explored creating a more edgier and dark version of Shrek that might appeal to adults. Adult animation on television was gaining momentum at the time, so I could see why they may have thought this was a good idea. This led to a more grim version of a castle landscape with a very ugly and disproportionate design of Shrek. Ultimately, this was not received well by the studio, who wanted something more commercial and for a larger audience. Shrek did not have to be beautiful, but they needed audiences to love him still. So they fired the previous team, and the dark, grungy landscape was replaced by fairy tale landscapes. And to maintain the alternative edge, they let the characters' actions and dialogue serve as juxtaposition and comedic takes on fairy tale characters, almost like they were creating one big joke about Disney.
The original crew liked the look. We kind of wanted this dark, edgy, low-budget film, but I think, and this may be very wisely so, that the people at the top realized that maybe Shrek could do very well with a broad audience if we soften it up and make it look prettier and nicer. Maybe we could get all of America to fall in love with Shrek. Looks like that's what happened, isn't it?
Something that I don't think is talked about often as well is the technical side of animation. Before creating Shrek, DreamWorks had released a previous 3D animated film called Ants, which followed the lives of, you guessed it, ants. When implementing the work for Shrek, they built on the facial animation system utilized in the previous film. This is really important to consider today because by utilizing a facial system and other model rigging for the entire body, it allows for more efficient animation, and I would assume they utilize the same system across movies. That is why you may see studios have similar body proportions or face shapes for their characters. And that brings me to Shrek 5's design. When looking at Shrek, there are subtle changes, but the major thing that I noticed is the face is larger and a lot more symmetrical. And I think this is highly likely to the latest facial system that they are using, coupled with a creative move to make the facial features larger to allow for more visible expression. The forehead and eyebrows are more prominent, the eyes are larger, and the cheekbones are higher. He also looks a little less green, but even with this update, I can still tell it's obviously Shrek. Another theory that I have is that he may be transforming into a human again in this film, and having the rigging align with his human version will just make the animation be more consistent. And like I mentioned before, first having Chris Farley in mind, they may now be tweaking the design to better fit Mike Myers. And then I also want to take into account the business considerations as well. In 2016, DreamWorks was acquired by Universal for $3.8 million. And this isn't the only animation studio that they own, because years prior in 2011, Universal acquired Illumination Studios. And right now, Illumination is greatly outpacing DreamWorks in profit with films like Super Mario, the Sing franchise, and the Despicable Me franchise. So it's likely this style of animation that Illumination has made popular has inspired the new look of Shrek as it tries to gain momentum and attention from the modern and global audience. When looking back on how Shrek has grown, it becomes more understandable how small changes can have such a big impact on audiences. It's an iconic design and character that took a lot of work to get right, and for DreamWorks, it worked out, allowing for the new studio to win its first Academy Award for Best Animated Film and breaking away from Pixar's shadow. It was the first ever Oscar given to a 3D animated film. When released, it was one of the top grossing films at the box office, and it inspired various spin-offs as well. In current times, though, I will say that animation industry is a tricky space. You have many creatives who, like their predecessors, are yearning to create something as groundbreaking as Shrek, and audiences who say that they want new and ambitious storytelling. But money talks, and over it says that audiences just want the same thing. And it seems even a transformative character like Shrek falls victim to that sentiment. But those are just my thoughts. I'd be interested in what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you like hearing my thoughts on animation, and I will see you in another video. Bye!